As the country pushes forward on its clean energy goals, biofuels are emerging as a powerful solution, not just for reducing emissions, but also for enhancing energy security, boosting the rural economy, and promoting sustainable growth. Our penultimate conversation of Green Rev 2025, in a sense, sums up what this day has been about. A look at how India's biofuel strategy is shaping a resilient future across all three pillars: energy, economy, and the environment. Please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Shri Sanjeev Chopra, Secretary, Department of Food and Public Distribution, Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution. And on the stage at this moment, ladies and gentlemen, for the conversation with him is my colleague Vasudha Venugopal.
Mr. Chopra, also when you talk about second-generation biofuels, are we also looking at fuels, ethanol from other sources, and how is the industry and the farming community preparing for this?
You know, this question is often asked that is the ethanol blending program sustainable? You know, because sugarcane has its limitations. Maybe in case we say on an average about 40 lakh tons, 30 to 40 lakh tons of sugar can be used every year, can be diverted for the purpose of ethanol. Now, where does the balance feedstock come from? So you mentioned about 2G, to which I'll come a little later. Before that, let me mention that the plan the government has to ensure that the ethanol blending program becomes self-sustainable. So there are other feedstock which the government is thinking about. So I would say the first one would be the broken rice. So while we have a surplus of stocks with us, with the Food Corporation of India, of the rice stocks, and they have been given in the past few years for the purpose of making ethanol, but maybe it is something that we need to revisit. So what we are doing now, beginning this year, the milling of rice that takes place, the fair average quality which is delivered by the rice millers to the government, that mentions 25% broken rice as permissible, up to 25% broken. Now, what we are trying to do this year for the first time is that we are going to reduce the broken percentage to 10%. That means we get 15% extra brokens, and in case I was to extract 15% additional brokens from this quantity, I would say around 50 to 60 lakh tons of brokens would be available for the purpose of ethanol. So this is one major feedstock that would become available. The second is maize, which has been incentivized by the government. Higher rate is being given for maize. The third is sweet sorghum, which we are trying.
Do you look at India as being the world's largest large-scale biofuel integrated economy in the coming years? Would you put a timeline to something like that?
I wouldn't put a timeline to it, but then yes, integrated biofuel economy, yes, because these sugar mills are getting converted to biorefineries. And sugarcane actually is such a wonderful crop. And as I always say that sugar industry itself is the torchbearer of the circular economy. I think everything in the sugarcane crop is being used, whether it is for the purpose of sugar or it is for the purpose of, let's say, biofuel, or now bioplastics, green hydrogen, potash derived from molasses. So I think it's a wonder crop, and I think the potential for the sugar mills to become biorefineries and integrated biofuel complex, I think it's very much within our reach.
So Mr. Chopra there laying out his vision. Any questions from the audience members? My questions are done, so anyone?
Hi, sir. I have one question related to sustainable aviation fuel. Now that we have been talking about biofuel for green energy transition, and when we talk about sustainable aviation fuel, again, ethanol is being considered as an active feedstock. So my question here is that, two questions actually. First, where are we in terms of roadmap? We have international mandates of meeting 1% by 2027 and 2% by following years. But as far as ethanol is concerned, will we have sufficient stock for sustainable aviation fuel, given that we are blending ethanol with petrol in a green energy transition? And second being, where are we in terms of our roadmap for sustainable aviation fuel? Thank you.
So in terms of the availability of the production capacity, I think that's not a constraint because the requirement for 20% blending is about 1,700 crore liter of production capacity. We already have a production capacity of about 1,825 crore liters, and 250 crore liters additional capacity is in the pipeline. As I mentioned, the cooperative sector has been given another interest subvention scheme to create more capacity. So in terms of capacity, we are not having any issue. The feedstock availability needs to be ensured. That is something being worked out. With regard to the SAF, so the standards are still being worked out. They are still not in place. The government is working on those standards. Those standards are in place. I'm hopeful that by the 2030, that 5% blending that we are talking about should be possible.
Thank you so much for joining.
We will now focus on the future of sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, and its pivotal role in decarbonizing air travel. With India now the world's third largest domestic aviation market, the urgency for cleaner, greener skies has never been greater. We have with us Vijay Nirani, MD True Alt, and Ranjit Kulkarni, VP Honeywell Energy. Well, first and foremost, let's talk about the economics and price sensitivity, given that it's 3 to 5 times more expensive SAF. So how do we get the industry to really adopt it?
How are we doing to manage some of this price sensitivity? Price sensitivity comes from volatility, uncertainty. So where we are looking into is how do we make sure the sustainable aviation fuel is available in a predictable quantity, in a timely quantity, and a substantial quantity that gives sufficient volumes to the market. So those are the things. More and more volume becomes available. It's a demand supply, correct? As the demand or the supply becomes more, price parity comes down. So that is where we are looking into bringing in the cost parity of it.
All right, Mr. Nirani, Trualt Bioenergy is now a key player in India's bioenergy transition with one of the country's largest intended SAF facilities. So if you could tell us what are the gaps in the startups ecosystem, pre-treatment tech, enzymatic solutions that need funding to make SAF cost competitive?
I think SAF is a very exciting program, or it's a phenomenal opportunity for us in the biofuels umbrella. So what we have is the potential to power aircrafts flying continents, which is actually produced by farmers. And of course, there will be certain technology challenges for which people like Mr. Ranjit Kulkarni are working very hard. And I'm sure him and his team will find solutions in the very near term. And in fact, we have sort of having the capacity for ethanol going through the alcohol to jet route, have plans to set up one of the largest capacities in the country. The technology really to convert ethanol to ethylene has been there, and people have been using that since many ages already. So it's only bringing together all of that and making a compound out of it, which Mr. Kulkarni and his team are set to achieve. And companies like us and country like ours is set to benefit from.
All right, so Mr. Kulkarni, that brings me to the question with Honeywell, Honeywell's ethanol to jet fuel process, cutting aviation greenhouse gas emissions by 80%. So how do you optimize this for India's diverse feedstocks, sugarcane, molasses versus agri-waste to maintain cost parity?
First thing I'm again proud to say is this ethanol to jet technology has been developed by us in India and it's gone global.
Okay, wonderful.
So that's a fantastic achievement for us.
That's quite an achievement. I think that deserves a round of applause, yes.
The second, we believe in two fundamentals. Waste is a misplaced resource, which means every molecule we harness, make sure we use it wisely. And just because I can do something doesn't mean I should do it. I have to be responsible. Let's talk about biomass. It's how we utilize that carbon, hydrogen, reject oxygen, reject other contaminants, and make the molecule I want, whether it is green plastic, whether it is green fuels, or green chemicals. How do I make it in less and lesser number of steps? If you look at agri-residue, biomass, ethanol, they all have different characteristics. Understanding these characteristics is very key in how we take it to the next step of SAF or biochemicals. That is where innovation comes into the picture. That is where we now try to do it. If I can do it instead of 4 steps, can I do it in 3 steps? Can I do it in 2 steps? Every step I reduces the carbon intensity, reduces the heat, reduces the energy, and thereby reduces the carbon footprint of that product. This is the philosophy we drive.
Mr. Nirani, to you now, how can airlines be encouraged to commit to long-term SAF procurement contracts, given, as we discussed, the cost premium, and should India mandate blending targets similar to what's happening in the European Union?
So I think the mandate is already announced, but the roadmap to achieving the mandate is what we are looking to hear from the policymakers. So there's a mandate to already start blending 1% by 27, 2% by 2028, and up to 5% by 2030. And again, CORSIA, the body that regulates emissions, has already given global emission mandates as well. So be it the US or the European Union, they chose different pathways to achieving those mandates. What I would say is, because the ethanol program became a big success for two reasons. One, there was incentives to the manufacturers, and again, there was a penalty if you don't consume or blend ethanol in petrol. There was a 2 rupee penalty that was levied. Right? In the European Union, they straightforward have carbon taxing. If you're not going to reduce your carbon emissions, there are taxes that are levied. And you know, multiple companies have either shut down or sold out because of the carbon tax implications. So one thing is, India is a very cost-sensitive economy.
Yes.
We are a very fast-growing economy. So, and again, as compared to per capita flying with the developed countries, we still are much, much lower than anybody else. Now, government is giving subsidies. There are capital subsidies available. There intend to be carbon credits that is coming up. There are a lot of global capital which is sort of allocated to SAF. We just need to tap on the right doors for us to make sure this project is up and running. So I think what the government or the policymakers are already doing, we just need them to come out with the right push a little more quicker. And then we get to use that and turn them into projects.
Mr. Nirani, if you can talk about, beyond decarbonization, as you were just elaborating, how can SAF drive rural employment as well as waste to wealth opportunities?
So it's a tremendous socio-economic sector by large. Right? So just to give our company, so one operates sugar mills, of course, one of our group companies, and TrueAlt does biofuels. Just one company or one group that is ours works with closely 350,000 farmer families. Let's say a family has 4 people. That's close to 1 million people that we work closely with. So that's the kind of impact one company probably can generate. And there are multiple companies like ours. So that said, all of what we consume come typically from all the farmers, the 1 million people that are directly employed or rather tied up with us. Once we take in the product, I'm just stepping a little behind, going beyond SAF and say, what exactly is the products that we take? We take the sugars that come in, we make one sugar for human body, that's one energy. We make cogen, we make power, we make ethanol. Now ethanol gets converted into SAF. The byproduct is biodiesel or bio-naphtha or other special chemicals. Or let's say the ethanol could get converted into malolactonic acid or multiple opportunities. So all in all, the whole value chain has the potential to create unimaginable level of employment. So that's a humongous socio-economic impact that we carry, not just on employment, but the allied support that the biofuel sector carries.
All right, well, on that very optimistic note, I'd like to end it here. Thank you so much both for joining us.
India's journey towards green mobility is at an inflection point. While EVs are at the center stage of the conversation, the road to sustainability is not a single lane. It's a multi-lane highway that includes flex fuel vehicles, hybrids, hydrogen, and other clean technologies. To dive into this, we have with us Mr. Mohan Savarkar, Chief Product Officer and VP Tata Motors. We are also joined by Mr. R.S. Sachdeva, Deputy CEO and Chief Transformation Officer, BECV. Mr. Sachdeva, first question to you is, in this day and age when there are so many technologies being talked about, there is EV, there is FFVs, there is hydrogen, there is hybrid, how are you finding the balance in making sure that these technologies, you get the best technology that is ready for the future?
Today, auto industry is a very, very complex stage where auto industry is also having the different of technologies to balance. And today, 6 technologies are there on which auto industry is working today. Diesel is there, then biodiesels, biofuels, There you have got the gas technology, you have got the ethanol technology, you have got the biodiesel technology. After that, CNG and LNG, and then of course EV is there, and then hydrogen internal combustion engine. Out of this six technology, I'm very happy to share that being part of the auto industry. Today, auto industry is very alert, and almost 60 to 70% of the investment is going toward the alternate technologies today. And how do we make the balance in that? Each technology has got its own complexity. CNG and LNG, there is some sort of balance is there. That for the shorter distance vehicle, you can go for CNG, and the longer distance, heavy commercial vehicle, you can go for the LNG. But LNG, again, quality of fuel, 26 stations are there across the country today, against 17,000 stations in CNG today across the country. That means that range anxiety for the drivers and the consumer is very high today at this point of time. So that balance also need to be maintained in terms of CNG, LNG, and ensuring that customer should get a reliable product, which is cost effective. Total cost of ownership is very optimal. But again, he shouldn't have the range anxiety in that thing. But one thing we can see that thing, if we have to see the balance with the optimal investment and optimal result in terms of the emissions, probably biofuels is the very good example, followed by CNG and LNG. So if I see that across the spectrum, I see that diesel will continue to rule for the next couple of years. And after that, you have got EV and hydrogen, where you see that total cost of acquisition as well as the complexity is high. But mid-plane, if you see that thing, CNG, LNG, biofuel, that is the route to go. All the aspect we look at that thing, we are just moving with the wave. We are just going with the flow and making sure that we invest on each of the technology, and any of the technology become relevant for any of the segment.
Yeah.
That's where we stand today at this point.
Actually, the path is, as we said, it's a multi-lane highway. Mr. Savarkar, I want to ask you, what is the biggest challenge that you see in a widespread adoption of FFVs on Indian roads?
So first of all, I mean, there's a difference in the supply chain between how, let's say, gasoline reaches our cars to how ethanol would reach our cars. Let's say there would be just about 20, 30 odd refineries that make all the fuel for India, and it may be comparatively easy to ensure quality standards are maintained across these manufacturers. When it comes to alcohol, or ethanol, it is going to be spread all over India in every area that produces raw material or feedstock that can get converted to ethanol. One of the things that matters is that the vapor pressure of ethanol is much less than gasoline. So what it means is that it doesn't catch fire so easily. So if we want ethanol adoption to move in the right direction, there needs to be a policy support to ensure that the fuel is available at an appropriate cost.
All right, Mr. Sachdeva and Mr. Savarkar, thank you so much for taking time out for us today and joining us today in Green Rev 2025.
In conversation today with Adani Total Gas CEO Suresh Manglani, we're going to explore flagship projects, partnerships, and renewable fuel investments. And first and foremost, I'd like to ask you, this view or this vision that we have of 15% is very ambitious. Already, India has in fact gone from 6.5% to 6% in terms of the share that gas has in our energy mix. So what are your comments on that?
I think it's I'm glad that you asked this very important question. But if you see on the absolute terms, our share of natural gas in absolute numbers has significantly increased. But because energy basket also has gone up, our GDP is growing, India is growing at 6.5%, 6%. So naturally, energy basket is growing, and in that, natural gas has increased. Now, whether it can go further, absolutely it will go further. There are several policy initiatives which government has already taken across value chain, whether it is upstream for enhancing domestic gas production, or midstream, building up the national gas grid across the country, or building the RLNG terminals at various strategic locations.
What this means for cleaner emissions and air quality in our cities, in our industrial areas.
As compared to other fuels which is being used today, whether in the industrial units, they use liquid fuels or solid fuels. At homes, we use LPG Likewise, commercial establishments are also using LPG and several other fuels. So as compared to those fuels, natural gas is far cleaner, almost 30 to 40% you save on carbon dioxide. Then similarly, you save on sulfur dioxide and many other NOx levels. So naturally, natural gas is far cleaner, and it is the government policy, the government has been promoting usage of natural gas. And you have seen in NCR itself, when there was a lot of pollutions was happening, this Honorable Supreme Court itself took the PIL and they started promoting CNG as a fuel even for a transport. So it is an undisputed fact that adoption of a natural gas will bring relief for all the cities, urban areas, and also the rural areas for breathing the fresh air and clean air.
If you could tell us what role is ATGL playing in terms of our self-sufficiency and, getting to that goal as well as decarbonization?
So Adani Total Gas is a city gas distribution company to the core. We have a license for 34 geographical areas. Geographical area could be multiple districts. So if I translate this geographical area into districts, we also have a 50-50 JV with Indian Oil Corporation. And as I'm speaking to you, we'll have around, put together, if I add IOGPL and ATGL, we'll have roughly 1.2 million homes connected on piped gas. We'll have roughly 12,000 industrial commercial consumers. We'll have more than 1,000 CNG stations operating currently in India. We supply natural gas. So as we said to you in the beginning, as I said, that it is actually a catalyst for the climate change.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Suresh Manglani, for joining us.